in sustainable packaging and possibilities. I'm joined here today by 3 industry experts from Africa, UAE, and India, who will discuss key trends in sustainable packaging and share their insights, examine significant developments and challenges, including the pandemic's effects on community initiatives, and touch upon innovative solutions and the change in approach to adopting sustainable, suitable strategies to transition towards more circular models. Let me first introduce our panelists. Adwa Coleman is the Sustainability and Advocacy Manager for Dow's Packaging and Specialty Plastics business in Africa. She is responsible for developing and implementing the packaging and specialty plastics sustainability strategy for the country. Adwa has notably been involved in the formation of the Ghana Recycling Initiative by private enterprises, where she is currently the president and sits on the steering board for the Ghana Plastics Action Partnership under the World Economic Forum initiative. Pankaj Poddar, CEO of Cosmo Films, is a regular speaker at packaging industry forums and sits on the board of Organization of Plastic Processors of India. Under his leadership, the company has crossed many milestones, such as being ranked 10th in Fortune Next 500's mid-sized companies and making it to the top 500 corporates list published by Dun & Bradstreet. He has 24 years of experience and has received many awards, including Young Business Leader at the Dare to Dream Awards by Zee Business in association with SAP, and India CEO of the Year Award by the Association of Business Communicators of India. Wasim Jina is a Senior R&D Plastic Sustainability Manager for the Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey at Unilever. He is a South African engineer based in Dubai, responsible for the Unilever plastic program in the region. Wasim has previously worked in South Africa and was a board member of Petco. Additional experience in Port Sunlight UK has helped him develop a mix of knowledge, which is both futuristic yet implementable, and an understanding of various market conditions. His actions in the plastic sustainability space are inspired by seeing plastic waste firsthand while scuba diving. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We encourage interaction and will be taking questions from the audience in a while, once the panelists have shared their views and insights on the topic. You can type out any relevant question or comment in the chat box that appears below. We have also received some audience questions in advance and will be addressing them shortly. I now request Wasim Jina to give us an overview of the key trends in the sector, also based on Unilever's initiatives in the area of plastic packaging. Wasim, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sulia. You can hear me well, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. So I'm Wasim Jina. I'm a Senior R&D Manager based in Dubai, and I look after our plastic program for the MENA region. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of what are the trends in sustainability, as well as Unilever's overview of the topic of plastic waste and sustainability. So very quickly, an introduction into who is Unilever. Unilever is a large FMCG company. We create a lot of the world's most favorite brands. We serve 2.5 billion consumers every day. And a key driver for me to work for this company is that sustainability is at the heart of what we do. Unilever has been named in various polls and ranking systems for their work in the sustainability space. They've been named as the leader of household and personal products in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, as well as achieving an environmental score of 5 on the FTSE4Good Index. These are all very highly rated indexes ranking companies and their work in the sector. So today's topic around plastic. Plastics have become a ubiquitous workhorse of the modern economy and an integral part of our lives. Given they're combining unrivaled functional properties with their low cost, their use has increased 20-fold and is expected to double again in the next 20 years. Plastics allow for us to create consumer products that are safe and retain efficacy. This gives plastic its unique ability to be a wonderful material. However, we have to understand and appreciate the other side of this conundrum. Increasingly, plastics have become a source of pollution, and it's a growing problem across the world. It doesn't respect any geographical borders and just moves from one place to another through the various streams that nature has worked. We already know that only 14% of the world's plastic is currently being recycled, and actually only 9% of that moves on to become a recycled product. Meanwhile, a third of that is left in a fragile ecosystems, and 40% of that ends up in our landfills. It is clear that urgent action is needed on multiple fronts to address this growing problem. In Unilever, our stance is simple. We believe plastic has a place in this world. However, that place is not in our oceans, rivers, streams, forests, or the environment. That is a very basic way of how we look at what is our view on plastic. Currently, we know that the world operates, as it does with many other resources, in a very linear fashion. Take, make, dispose. However, through doing this, we're losing such large amounts of economic value. 95% of plastic material value is lost, thrown away, literally flushed down rivers. Some moderate estimates estimate that this number is valued at $80 to $120 billion a year of value in the economy just washed away through the systems. We know that large amounts of plastic escape all sorts of collection infrastructures, and that results in us having to spend even more money in trying to recover that plastic and protect our environment. That loss is estimated at another $40 billion. If we think about it in totality, we're estimating that around $160 billion is being lost year on year due to poor management of the plastic post our use of it. We also know that around 40% of the world's plastic is created to be single use, and this is where the big challenges come in. So this is the Unilever approach. We wish to progress the circular economy. We know that the circular economy is an idea that humans can utilize and restore resources by mimicking circular flows that exist in the natural environment. Think about minerals and other organic resources, which are able to, after we can be extracted, manufactured, and after that, we reuse the product as a valuable resource to make something new or to renew where it came from. This is the overarching principle of the circular economy. Keep resources in the flow and preventing waste. It's a very important point for us to pick up on the circular economy is that it's not just recycling. Recycling speaks purely to plastic purely to the raw material and the plastic in this case. The more important point is, what does the overall system look like? What does a complete life cycle analysis look like? Because we should not be saving on one end and killing ourselves on another end. This is the absolute key to the circular economy. We need to make sure that resources flow circularly, as well as ensuring that all parts of our environment are protected equally, because we cannot allow for greenhouse gases to move out of control whilst we reduce the amount of plastic that we have entering our oceans. All of these things have to be done in balance. If we think about this and the circular economy, we have to think about how we design. There are four main sectors that we have to design better in order for us to achieve a good circular economy. The first one is our choice in formats. In a lot of times, consumers are asking for more and more new formats which have been created previously to be very unsustainable. Simple products like pumps, which contain metal springs as well as plastic components, are not designed for the circular economy and thus need to be phased out in our new design principles. We also have to be very clear on our polymer choices, making sure that we're choosing the right types of plastics which are compatible with recycling streams, plastics which are compatible with each other, to ensure that we are designing for the circular economy. Again, pigment choices. Some of you may or may not know that certain colors of plastics are not able to be recycled in traditional recycling streams. And when we start to add colors, we add more complexity and lower the value of that actual plastic. How do we start to make better choices which allow for us to create the circular economy? Lastly, additives. Adding additives such as biodegradable additives that we have seen explode throughout the world, which allow for us to make some marketing story, however, end up ultimately harming us in the end, are not the way that we should be going. And we need to be careful about what we choose. All of these things have to be done in balance to ensure that we have a good life cycle analysis. If we look at these basic top line numbers, estimate that we could save 1 to 1.6 billion just by designing out waste. That is in addition to the 160 billion we spoke about earlier, where we can save money by not throwing away plastic. The case for the circular economy is not just about being a good Samaritan. The case is an economic one. And this is at the heart of Unilever's solutions. We have to find sustainable solutions that are economically viable for all of us. Otherwise, it doesn't become sustainable. Very quickly, I'll take you through the Unilever targets, and this will help you understand how we design and some of the trends that we are seeing and creating in the sustainability space. Our first target in the bottom left speaks to the design. We will design 100% of our plastic to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable by 2025. This is the absolute basic of what we're doing. We need to be able to reuse whatever we're putting out there. The second target, we'll cut the use of virgin plastic, that's plastic from oil, new plastic from oil, by half. We'll do this in two ways. The first way is by using recycled plastic, and the second way is by doing an absolute plastic reduction through new technologies. Thirdly, or lastly, we will collect and process more waste than we sell. We'll do this through various investment partnerships with companies, which you'll hear a little bit more about, purchasing and using recycled plastic, as well as through EPR schemes. All of these make sure that we get the full circle going and the circular economy running. Unilever takes a very simple approach to the way that we approach our plastic program. We have 3 pillars, and I'll quickly take you through them. Less plastic, better plastic, and no plastic. Less plastic speaks to an absolute reduction in the amount of plastic that we're using. We're able to do this through using new technologies such as MuCell, in which case we pump gases into the middle of a multi-layer bottle to create a honeycomb structure, which allows for light weighting. The second part is better plastics. We're able to achieve better plastics in 2 parts. The first one being recyclable, that's one better plastic. The second part, using recycled plastic. These are things which help us keep the circular economy going. The last part, no plastic. No plastic speaks to our aims to go for packaging-free or plastic-free options. However, we have to be careful at this point. The life cycle analysis has to be understood and making sure that what we're doing is not saving in one part, but killing us in another part. This is a super important part of this pillar, the no plastic pillar. A lot of consumers want us to move as quickly as possible to plastic-free options. However, it has to be done responsibly. Without the responsibility, we will end up with another environmental disaster on our hands. A couple of initiatives that Unilever are doing and trends that we're seeing in the market. For example, Loop is a delivery system which allows for returnable and refillable packaging. We've trialed this successfully in the US, in Europe, and the UK, and looking at how we can expand this across the globe. This is a very simple system which speaks to the full circular economy, about ensuring that everything we design is fully circular and we don't have any waste generated. It's very basic. You order something as you would do on a normal e-commerce site. You tell them to come and collect it once you're done, and you get it given a replacement. Simple system, complex to execute. However, it's a great initiative in completely removing all waste from the system. The next one that we have, Unilever sells a lot of multi-layer sachets today. Very small sachets which allow consumers who would not be able to outlay money for a big bottle, allows consumers to access our products. However, sachets create huge waste and are very difficult to recycle and collect. We've developed new technology in Indonesia, where we've created Cresol, which is a technology which allows for the separation of multi-layer waste and the recycling of that plastic. That plastic is then used to create new sachets. A big challenge with this program is the collection of actual sachets, because they're so light, they can fly everywhere. The way we're able to achieve this is by putting an economic value onto the value of that sachet, which allows for people to collect it and create businesses and jobs out of that. The next one that we have, and we spoke a little bit around black plastic earlier when we spoke about pigment choices. Previously, we were unable to recycle black plastic because near-infrared technology was not able to pick out what type of plastic the black bottle was. However, through partnerships that we've been able to form with our master batch suppliers, we've now been able to create detectable black master batches. That means that today, new Tresemme bottles made out of black plastic have been created from old pre-used bottles that have now been reloved, taken care of, and put into new bottles, which is a fantastic achievement, saving around 2,500 tons of plastic. This is able to be achieved through collaboration with master batch suppliers, recyclers, as well as the consumers and ourselves. These are the sorts of partnerships which really create meaningful changes in the industry. As we've spoken about, the circular economy requires all parts of the extended global plastic production chain to work together. And that's exactly what calls like this and forums like this are about. How do we work together to create the circular economy? Because in every part, from manufacturer to consumer to government to innovators, all of us need to be working together. And I really invite everyone on the call to come and work with us to find ways in which we can create a circular economy which moves from waste to resources and keeps value within the economy. A little bit closer to home for me now, in my new home here in the UAE, are some of the initiatives we've been working on in the last year. The first one is we became a member of Project Circle. Project Circle signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Climate Change to develop a circular economy model here in the UAE, which will allow for us to reduce the amount of plastic and packaging waste and pollution. We've also been working with various of our retailers like Carrefour in how we can influence consumer behaviors through educational programs, such as the picture you see in the middle here, which speaks to reverse vending machines, which allow for consumers to deposit bottles back into the machine. We're able to then recycle that, and they get back vouchers in return. Lastly, we've been trying to educate and inspire the youth of the country by having the Entrepreneur Awards, where people have been creating new programs. And through this, we've been able to get quite a few new initiatives going through universities here in the UAE. As we spoke about, Project Circle, which is the industry coalition, the Coalition of Innovation and Recycling towards a Closed Loop Economy, was developed in 2018. And we have many partners, some of which are on this call today, in working together to create a truly circular economy. This is the same partners that we are working with in order to collect back more waste than we put out into the environment, and are absolutely working together on this goal of a circular economy. The great part is it contains members of government, NGOs, as well as producers on the extended value chain. Finally, and I think I'm out of time, but finally, we have the last partnership that we have ongoing, which was revealed in the last quarter of 2019, which is our partnership with Beer, which is a recycler nearby to Dubai, in which we are working together on recycling facilities as well as waste collection and improving waste collection in the region. And lastly is community development. We truly believe that for sustainability to happen, we need to ensure that the full value chain, including our consumers, have to fully appreciate the extent of the climate emergency going on today, as well as what their role is in helping us prevent that. Hopefully that was in time, Suliha. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks so much, Wasim, for nicely summing up what's happening in the industry globally at present, and also touching upon pertinent aspects of what Unilever is doing in terms of sustainable solutions, also in the context of circular economy. Now, there are a lot of questions, but I'm going to take them later. There's one question related to technology that you spoke about. Somebody wants to know, Rodrigo wants to know, what technology is the one from Indonesia separating layers in flexible packaging?
The technology is called Cresolve. You can still hear me, right? The technology is called Cresolve. It's a partnership that we have developed with the Fraunhofer Institute of Process Engineering and Packaging to recycle plastic sachets. From my understanding, as of today, we have pilots running across Southeast Asia to collect, and I believe we've collected around 4,000 tons so far of sachets to collect, separate, and then reuse that plastic. The technology is called Cresolve. I think it's on this. I can flick back to the slide if you want. This is the technology that we're using. It's a Unilever, Unilever exclusive partnership now, and I'm sure we'll be expanding soon.
Thank you, Asim. Okay, I'd now like to invite Pankaj Poddar to present his experience and insights and their approach to sustainability in packaging solutions. Over to Pankaj.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Waste and Recycling for this opportunity. I'm going to talk about trends in sustainable packaging on the flexible side. Wasim tried in covering rigid and flexibles, and I will largely talk about flexible packaging and what's going on in the world, especially on the multi-layer packaging as such. First, very quickly, a story of Samurai and Zen. Zen wanted to learn from the monk what is the difference between heaven and hell, and the monk replied that, look, you are an idiot, you are a stupid, and the king immediately got angry, and he said, this is the hell, right? The moment you get angry, this is the hell. And next time he learned how to remain happy and showed him the heaven. So this is the hell and heaven for our industry. We need to learn how to collect all this plastics, which is all over. Otherwise, there are a lot of beauty about plastics, and I'll try and cover some of it very, very quickly. And if you really see in terms of even the consumer pricing, the reason that consumer pricing is able to, I very closely watch one of the tomato ketchup by Unilever, and I could see a pretty big difference in their pricing for the bottle versus flexible pouch. And I think packaging plays a very important role. The plastics play a very important role there. So very clearly, one truckload of unfilled flexible pouches versus 26 of glass jars. So it's 1:26. That's the kind of difference, and that results in a lot of cost which comes along with it. So plastics very clearly has one of the lowest carbon footprint, and recycling of plastic has to ensure no greenhouse emissions are made. There's just the India number, but globally there's several million tons of plastic being generated, and already Wasim talked about what percentage is getting recycled. Of this, though the flexible packaging is a very small part of it because it's far lighter than other forms of packaging, but that creates its own problem because a lot of this was going and traveling from one place to the other, and actually it can be created into wealth if it is converted mechanically or chemically, and there's a lot of value around this. So critical is to build up a process of collection and segregation of plastic waste. Wasim talked about one example in Indonesia. That's a very relevant example. In many parts of the world right now, brands are working towards how to make their multi-layer packaging much more easily sustainable and recyclable, and I'll also talk about some of that in my presentation. I would also urge all the listeners to also go through CE Flex guidelines, which has come in Europe, and there are Indian guidelines also. And what I think CE Flex is an organization of more than 100 companies. And one of the critical things that they're talking about multi-layer in phase 1 study they have talked about is how polypropylene and polyethylene related multi-layer can be recycled so easily. But I would encourage the listeners to go through those CE Flex guidelines, and we can talk this in more detail a little later. So I would talk about PP-rich structures and how they can be made recyclable. So this is a very nice study which has been done that polypropylene or polyethylene, being from the same family, they can be extruded back into granules very easily. And as per the CE Flex guidelines also, if the ratio of polypropylene and polyethylene is more than 80%, then they can be recycled very easily.
Pankaj, there's some issue, I think, with the.
Can be very easily recycled. The second one is PET PP, PET P. There's a lot of study going on globally whether all the other materials can they be separated. Yeah. Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Is it fine now? Is it fine now? Okay.
Yeah. Now it's okay.
All right. When we talk about PET polypropylene or foil getting into the structure, then first is the challenge of how do you separate it out. Though there are now technologies available which can manage all different type of plastics, the value that realized out of it is still a question mark. What products you can actually make out of. Let me check my connection. Yeah, I think everything looks fine at my end. Is it fine, Swalia, right now?
No, your voice is breaking in between, so we're not sure why.
All right. And the other structures again, so there are two methods of separating them. One is that you directly try and convert them into granules of low purity, or you convert them, segregate them and then get granules. But if you really see on this slide, the polypropylene and polyethylene, that's the most easiest recycling, give you the granules of much higher quality, while everywhere else there's much more process involved, and then the granules may or may not be of that good quality. So that's a very clear differentiation, though obviously a lot of research is going on that can you have these different polymers gathered together and can still create a good structure. But I think the focus globally by the brands to look at polypropylene and polyethylene structures more, but they're far more easily recyclable. Now, there were some challenges around when you try and use polypropylene and polyethylene structures. And one of the critical challenges was whether these films are heat resistant, because typically polyester or some of the other films, let's say PVC, are much better heat resistant. And then, the solutions came. Cosmo also came back with a solution, where BOPP was made heat resistant and therefore it can more temperatures while sealing. We had 3 different versions of 160 to 170 degrees, 170 to 180, and beyond 180, right up 190 degrees. So that's a very good temperature range where every machine can seal these pouches of multi packaging. And if you talk about applications, it's tremendous applications. It's already now started being used in detergents, in beverages, and in ketchup. So those are some of the applications where you need more heat, or you need better sealing. You can use these heat resistant structures. Some of the other challenges, especially, is on the oxygen barrier, because polypropylene and polyethylene does not have a barrier of its own. Now we have films which have very high barrier values. In fact, not just closer to the polyester, but also very similar to the aluminum foil. And therefore, brands and packaging industries is actually started moving towards using some of these films to replace foil and to replace aluminium as well as polyester to make structures which are from one family, one olefin family. So those are again, and there could again tremendous amount of applications, but this would largely apply to products which require high oxygen barriers as such. This could be nutty biscuits or nutty chocolates and so on and so forth. The third challenge was there on the sealing strength. And again, now there are a lot of solutions which have come in the market for high seal strength cast polypropylene films. And in fact, CPP films not just provide a very good sealing, but it also avoids the contamination during sealing process. In fact, in certain cases, it's even working better than polyethylene, and it shows a very good seal strength. And you can also play with the hot tack properties to make it suitable for the different machines.
Pankaj, we can't hear you. Pankaj?
So I think my entire study more around how the polypropylene and polyethylene together is helping multi-laminate with recyclable, provide value for the Is it? Yeah, is it now?
Pankaj, there's some issue with your mic, I think.
Hi. Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah, now it's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Now these are some live case studies where the pouches were made into multi-layer laminates were made into recyclable structure, and so on the left side you had a structure of PET or PP with aluminum foil and PE, and this was converted into a purely olefin-based structure with a heat-resistant polypropylene on the top, so that it can take more temperature for sealing. There's an ultra-high barrier film in between, so that it can provide oxygen barrier. And then there is a CPP film, which provides, you can use polyethylene or CPP, with a very high seal strength to ensure that the sealing is strong. So this is one very clear example, and we'll talk about some real life case studies. Similarly, on the clear PET and P, this is a very basic structure used for so many products worldwide. Shampoo pouches, another example, which historically was this structure and gradually shifting to a polypropylene CPP based structure. So again, making the product very easily recyclable. It can be done through mechanical recycling and provides a very high value for the granules as such. So these are some of the segment-wise conversions that we have done. And these are the 4 parameters that a brand looks after, or a packaging company looks after, or we look after. It has to be sustainable. That's first thing. It has to have shelf life, shelf appeal, and cost efficiency. So these are the typical 4 parameters which a brand looks like, and we'll now talk about some case studies how they solve it. So one very beautiful example is soap bar, which was a PET P structure, and this was then converted into a BOPP, which was a heat resistant BOPP on the top and a pearlized BOPP on the bottom, and it provided envelope sealing as well. Which used to be a challenge in the past with the BOPP, and special film was made for it. It's been a great success story, and it's doing exceedingly well. Similarly, for the string pack, the first one example was for envelope. The second was for string pack, where again, BOPP, CPP, white CPP was used here for high-speed flow wrap. And if you really see at the bottom, it met all those 4 criteria of sustainability, shelf appeal, cost efficiency, and shelf life. And actually, this white BOPP was specially engineered to withstand envelope sealing, typically of a soap wrapping application. Similarly, Noodles, Ketchup, now all these products have also been now converted into a polypropylene, polyethylene-based structures, so that they are from the same family. And again, it meets all those 4 criteria for the brands and the packaging converting, the community concerned. Same for tea, coffee. These are some, again, examples, real life examples where these conversions have been done. And actually, if you really see, though, Wasim talked about rigid plastics and, master batches, and these are some very relevant challenges. But if you really see in many countries, the topmost challenge until now has been multi-layer packaging. And many of these has now been beautifully sorted out, by sorting out 3 problems which brands or the packaging you used to have in the past. And these are again some examples of conversion where shampoo sachets have been converted, personal care sachets have been converted. And again, if you see on the left side, there was a PET structure along with P, which was from two different families and therefore made it extremely difficult to recycle. While on the right side, you have polypropylene or a polypropylene polyethylene based structures, again, easily mechanically recyclable. And these are various different things in terms of price tables, but I would kind of skip that. But I think the critical element is that polypropylene in general has very low density, and it's always on low on cost. It normally stays below $1 per kilo, and therefore is able to provide a very low cost solution to the consumer, to the brand, and to the packaging companies. This is a very little overview about Cosmo Films. We are almost 40-year-old company now, ISO BISO certified, very strong on the exports and global supplies. We have presence in Korea, India, US, and Japan, and we have several patents with us. Listed company in India. And these are the 4 product ranges, but right now I talked about largely packaging because that was the critical problem to sort out. And I think what's clearly coming out is that with polypropylene and polyethylene put together, you can actually, I would say almost everything can be converted into polypropylene, polyethylene, whether it's a small pouch, very large pouch, or a medium-sized pouch. You can sort this out and make it recyclable. The main thing that has to be done over the period is that everything has to be either converted there, or you need to start sorting between same family and non-family, which again, if you go through a CEFlex document, there's a very good work which is going on in terms of how to sort out PET-P based pouch versus a polypropylene based pouch. During question answers, if somebody has some questions, I can try and answer those. So I think I again completed well in time, I believe. Swalia, sorry for some challenges in between. If there's any part that you want or any of the attendees want me to repeat, I'll be happy to do that. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. That's not your fault. And of course, we're all dealing with technology here. So yeah. Thank you so much for a detailed presentation and for touching upon the trends, also highlighting the challenges Cosmo had to overcome with regard to recyclability and other issues, and also, how you're offering more sustainable solutions now. I now request Adwa Coleman to share your insights on Dow's sustainability strategy for plastics and initiatives in Africa. Adwa.
Thank you so much, Swalia. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some. My name is Adwa Coleman, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about what Dow is doing as a plastics business on sustainability, specifically focused around Africa, but I'll touch a little bit on some of our global projects as well. I think we all know what the challenge is, right? By 2030, the world's population will reach almost 8.5 billion. This will require 50% more food than we use now, 40% more water, and 30% more energy. Currently, 1/3 of the food is wasted globally, 1.3 billion tons every single year. 870 million people are undernourished, and 4% damaged happens during transportation. Now, skipping from that context of the larger global issues or the global dynamics as to why we have to have this conversation, I want to bring you down to the state of waste in Africa, right? Currently, or as of 2012, Africa was generating around 125 million tons of municipal solid waste. It's expected to double in 2025. This is just in 5 years from now. And one thing that we can absolutely say for sure is that the waste management infrastructure since 2012 has not developed enough to meet what the challenges will be in 2025 with double of this amount being produced. In terms of collection, it is estimated that approximately 55% of what's generated every day is actually collected. This is a huge challenge. It means that half of what is produced every day does not even make it into the collection system. Of what actually makes it into the collection system, it's estimated that 90% of that still ends up in uncontrolled dump sites and landfills, and also in open burning, which I think is a pretty common practice in many developing countries because of the lack of options for what to do with the waste. 19 of the world's 50 biggest dump sites are located in sub-Saharan Africa. And I was actually very sad to find out years ago that the biggest e-waste dam actually exists in Ghana, where I'm originally from. In terms of composition, we are finding out that roughly 13% of this municipal solid waste generated in Africa is plastic. This means that less than 1/4 of the waste that you actually see in the environment is plastics. And this is not to diminish the issue, but this is to highlight that we need to understand the context of the waste issue as we are looking in the environment and seeing it there, and realizing that in our context, sometimes it's a little different, right? The organic fractions in Africa are significantly more than any other composition within that waste stream. Last but not the least, in terms of recycling, and I know that my previous presenters have touched a little bit on this, the amounts of recycling that are happening today globally are very woeful. In Africa, it's estimated that it's only 4%, and this varies across the board, right? South Africa has a very impressive recycling rate, but that compared to the rest of the continent on an average brings it to 4%. However, it's actually believed that 80% of what is generated could actually be recycled if the systems were in place. So let's talk a little bit about Dow and our packaging and specialty plastics business and what we're trying to do in this sustainability space. So Dow, as a company, is a material science company. We have several different products that go into different types of applications, with packaging and specialty plastics being one of those sectors. Our packaging and specialty plastics business has several innovative key application areas. In flexible packaging, our polyethylene and adhesives help to minimize food waste and are helping to create structures that are designed for recyclability. Some of those structures are some of the combinations that Mr. Pradar touched on in his presentation. Around rigid packaging, our resins are being used in bottles, drums, caps, and lids that are lightweight and durable for a reduced environmental footprint. In the consumer space, our elastomers, fibers, and polyolefin technology are helping to advance things in the health, hygiene, and fitness application space. And in infrastructure, our resin technology is being used for pressure pipes, power and telecom and transmission applications, and road paving with recycled materials, which we're really proud of as a sustainable application. However, our sustainability strategy as a whole borders on three main things, which are captured in the little schematic that's in that sustainability strategy box. It has three parts. The first part is to keep plastics out of the environment. And we very recently renewed our commitment to that goal by calling it stopping the waste. So by 2030, Dow will stop the waste by enabling 1 million tons of plastic to be collected, reused, and recycled through our direct actions and partnerships. The second part of our sustainability strategy is around advancing a circular economy. And in this space, we shortened that goal to call it closing the loop. By 2035, Dow will close the loop by enabling 100% of Dow products sold into packaging applications to be reusable or recyclable. Last but not the least, in this three-pronged strategy is our partnerships. Around partnerships, we want to make sure that everything that we do considers our value chain partners. And that includes everything that happens even through the last line of plastic when the consumer uses the products in them, and hopefully it finds its way back into the loop, right? And we know as Dow that we can't do all these things by ourselves, and this is why partnerships are very important and critical to us. So I'll touch a little bit on some of the initiatives that we have aligned to those 3 goals that I just described. So in keeping plastics out of the environment or stopping the waste, our first prerogative there as Dow is to make sure that no more plastics end up in the environment. This is absolutely unacceptable. And we know that currently some of the packaging structures that are produced are not recyclable. So what happens to these types of packaging structures? We need innovative end uses that can account for them. In the US, Dow has established a very innovative partnership with Hefty, which is one of the biggest trash bag brands in the US, for a program called the Energy Bag. This is in collaboration with Reynolds, which is the brand owner that owns the Hefty portfolio, to create this orange bag that you see in the image. And this orange bag is distributed to specific communities where we have established partnerships for people to put particular types of waste into that orange bag. So where plastic is recyclable, we absolutely want to make sure that it gets recycled. However, when it's not, it needs to end up in this orange bag so that it can find an alternative end use. So what this Hefty Energy Bag program does, when these households put that particularly hard to recycle or unrecyclable plastic into these bins, it ends up in a process to convert it to diesel grade fuel. To date, we have over 400,000 households that participate in this program and 458 tons that have been diverted from the environment and landfill through this particular project. Secondly, under keeping plastic out of the environment, we have our innovative Project Butterfly program, which runs in Africa. This is a platform to promote sustainability on the continent and address specific challenges that we know exist here. So in Africa, something that I tell people very often about the topic of sustainability and the concept of circular economy is that it's not relatable to your average person, right? If someone is considering their basic needs, it's very hard to help to have them understand the need for them to be conscious about waste management, let alone sort or separate their waste at home. And Wasim had referenced earlier that they have a program in another developing economy context where they incentivize people to collect their waste. This is the same principle that we utilize in these situations. That's the language that people understand, that I can make a livelihood from collecting this, what you are calling a resource, because that's the language we're trying to promote. And I saw someone write in the chat that I said waste. We're all trying to modify our behaviors around this, right? So I'm a firm preacher of not waste, but a resource. And so thank you for that correction. And this is the message that we're trying to push here, is that, you know, this is a resource, and the way to relate it to your average person is to help them understand that if they keep it, they can trade it back in for some incentive, which will help them to purchase food or water or to further their general livelihood. In addition, the next generation is such an important part of how we will move circular economy, recycling, and everything around this space forward. And so school recycling programs are very, very important to us. And just this year, actually, we started to work with Unilever on a very innovative program they have in Kenya called the U-Turn School Program. And we're actually helping to expand that program by including 100 more schools to what currently is on the ground. And we're really, really excited about that. Additionally, we have school recycling programs in Ghana and in South Africa. Secondly is around the partnerships, which I referenced a little before. Dow is a global member of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, and this is one of the biggest coalition initiatives helping to turn the situation around with palpable resources. So I recall when the announcement was first made, it was a commitment of about 1.5 billion over the next 5 years to help turn things around in the plastic waste space, to make sure that we can end the term plastic waste or stop the issue of plastics ending up in the environment. And to date, we're making several strides with this partnership. Another key innovative partnership that we are part of as DAO is the Circulate Capital Fund. So one of the questions I've asked myself over time doing this work in Africa is, how will we fund these systems? How will we ensure that the impact that we are making has potential to be scaled up? And that lies in the financing, right? So this Circulate Capital Fund is a fund directly targeted towards preventing ocean waste, where companies have put their money together in this pot to directly impact this particular space. Now, the reason I like it and why I think it's a sustainable financing method is because these are not grants. These are actually investments that come back into the loop and can be used to enable more impact and more actions through these partnerships. Additionally, in Ghana, we are a part of or a founding member of the Ghana Recycling Initiative by Private Enterprises, GRIBE, as is Unilever. GRIBE is one of those organizations that started off to enable sustainable waste management in Ghana, but has significantly grown to be a platform that people in the country look to for guidance on plastic waste management. And Dow, as well as the other large companies that are a part of this initiative, are really proud to be, I guess, the root of the new movement around ensuring plastics don't end up in the environment in the country. Last but not the least is our circular economy solutions. Dow has made several global announcements around amazing things we are doing to enable circular economy, including mechanical, chemical recycling, exploration of bio-based solutions, and I'll touch on just a few of these initiatives. So we announced last year a very courageous partnership in Europe with a group called Phoenix, where we are enabling naphtha, which is the base material for making our resins through pyrolysis. So directly converting plastic waste into naphtha through pyrolysis as a process to gain that raw material back. This also helps to address some of the issues around food grade packaging where it may not be possible with mechanical recycling. With chemical recycling, you can directly take post-consumer plastic waste and turn it back into a new feedstock to make plastic. Also very important to us is an announcement we made last year, which is a partnership with UPM to make naphtha from bio-based solutions. And so this partnership takes a byproduct of, I guess, paper manufacturing to convert it into naphtha once again, from a bio-based source to enable that same feedstock to make our raw materials. Now, these two innovations are ones that we announced on a scale last year, which are going to see bigger gains and higher impact as the years go on. And last but not the least, very recently, we announced our project Reflex, a project in Nigeria to recycle flexible packaging into post-consumer recyclates to be used in other applications and end uses. We're very, very proud of this initiative because the particular plastic waste stream that we targeted is sachet water. And I'm not sure how many of you have seen this sachet water application, which is very popular in West Africa, but it's the means by which a significant part of the population has access to clean drinking water. And in that sense, this is a vital application. This is something that millions of people use every day. And unfortunately, the waste from it ends up in the environment. We're very proud as Dow to enable the recycling of this particular material on a pilot scale at this moment and are looking forward to future impact. So last but not the least, I wanted to touch on a situation which we are all too familiar with, and which is the reason why maybe we're having a webinar instead of an in-person engagement, which we could have. But this is the whole COVID situation, right? Over the past few months, the whole world has been challenged on quite a significant level. And I actually read somewhere that the Washington Post did a study on searches in Google, and one of the most common searches since 2014, since 2004, actually, just within this short period of time, has been, how can I help? The phrase, how can I help? And I think it speaks to what's happening with everyone right now. You know, whether we're going through our own challenges, we see what's happening external to us, and several major companies have stepped up to establish different ways in which they can help. So Dow as a company has created a COVID-19 resource page where we have highlighted and documented all our solutions that can go into COVID response. But this is not where it ends. Additionally, we did something which we're very much known for, I think, as Dow on a global citizenship space. We all have always considered ourselves as citizens in the communities where we run and operate and sell into. And during this period, we've stepped up as a company to see how we can help in these particular communities. So these pods are very small and you may not be able to see them, but I tried to offer a timeline of how we have stepped up during this time in response to COVID to help in these communities where we are present and that we sell into. And I just wanted to highlight some of those initiatives that we are doing as part of that. So very early on in the year, we helped the Shenzhen One Foundation in China to purchase medical supplies for the frontline workers in Hubei province in China. Additionally, the Dow Foundation donated to the China Development Resource Fund to send medical supplies to poverty-stricken areas. Around March, we started to repurpose some of our facilities globally to start to produce very much needed hand sanitizers to distribute to these communities and the frontline workers. We started in Germany and it continued globally in the sites where we had the ability to do this. We then made a major announcement later in March in the year to donate $3 million towards effecting change and helping out in terms of COVID relief globally. So we developed a COVID-19 Solidarity Fund through the WHO to help efforts globally. In March, or later than in March as well, we helped in the Philippines to create emergency quarantine facilities by providing our plastic solutions as an immediate containment material to build these particular structures that were needed very urgently in the region. In mid of April, we developed a lightweight design for face shields, which we then globally made available for others to produce. So this particular design for this face shield is open source and is now available online for anyone to take up and manufacture globally. And in May 11th, we opened up our pack studios to manufacture and donate over 50,000 square meters of polyethylene film to be used as protective clothing for frontline and key workers in the hospitals in Spain, which were very significantly affected. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have presented today. And I just wanted to share with you some of these things, both from our packaging and specialty plastics perspective, as well as what's been going on with us in this COVID period. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Edwa, for giving us an overview of the state of waste management in Africa and also your sustainability strategy and initiatives. Now, you touched upon your community initiatives with regard to plastic waste management and collections in different parts of Africa and your partnerships. I'm sure there must have been a lot of challenges on the ground for the past few months, as you just mentioned. So also including the impact that it might have had on the workers engaged in the collections. I think they've been one of the key segments that were most affected in many developing countries. Now, could you tell us a bit about these challenges and what's happening at present on this front?
Thank you so much, Swali, and that's a very good question that you asked. So as we know, in several developing country contexts, we have people called waste pickers, waste collectors, very recently being called waste reclaimers, because we want to call what they're picking up a resource, right? So they're reclaiming that resource. And these waste reclaimers are some of the most vulnerable people in our societies. When this situation with the COVID pandemic started to heighten, we were receiving calls, texts, emails from our partners who work with these waste reclaimers to collect back these materials, which are a significant part of recycling and enabling a circular economy in this region. So what we did as DAO, we created an online drive to help collect money to enable help for these reclaimers in terms of supplementing their income in this time where some of them are not able to pick, or money to be able to provide personal protective equipment where they are still having to collect and are still having to be out in the environment, even during this COVID period, to ensure that they have the right gear so that they do not hopefully get infected from this. Additionally, we see that long term, there is an opportunity to help these informal workers in a bigger way, either to bring them into a formalized system or to help to better their livelihood. And so this fund has been enabled to help with that. And this fund is still ongoing and running, and we're still accepting donations into this fund, as DAO is also matching these efforts globally.
So actually, Adriana Zakei has a point here, which I think her suggestion is right. When we were talking about the waste pickers now, she was mentioning like how about resource recovery agents, which is very true. And instead of waste reclaimers, because they are not reclaiming waste, but actually the resources. So thank you, Adriana, for that suggestion. And I had, as I already mentioned, we had received some questions in advance. Now, I'd like to address some of them here. Hareen Sangavi asks, what is the alternative to multi-layer plastics? If there is a replacement for multi-layer plastics, if there is a replacement for multi-layer plastics when they are phased out, what is the reason for not phasing out these plastics earlier? And on the subject of mono and multi-materials, what are the key technological challenges that you face in shifting to mono materials? Pankaj, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, sure, Swalia. Thank you for that. See, multi-layer plastics is the lowest cost solution and also reduces the carbon footprint in a very significant way. So I do not think so that if it is replaced by anything else, which could be rigid plastics, it is only going to add cost as well as carbon footprint. And these are also coming out very clearly in the different guidelines coming out worldwide. In fact, very clear guidelines is to reduce plastics and not to increase or put it heavier content. Yes, there are clear answers to it. You can actually either have mono material in the structure, which makes recycling extremely easy and very valuable. You can get maybe 50 to 80% of the original plastic value back if you have mono material. But also if you have multi-material, you can still recycle it, though the value that you realize is very less and you still end up having a lot of residue waste in the process. So I think in the multi-layer packaging, though more research is continuously happening, but as an easier solution could be to shift to more and more polypropylene and polyethylene based structures, which is going to increase the recoverability of the material which comes as so-called waste or resource, or this, I could see some debate going on, but yeah, you can actually convert that into a clear resource and get maybe 50 to 80% value back.
Right. Wasim, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think
for sure, multi-layer plastics are currently what's in use, but as Pankaj says, we're moving as quickly as we can to mono materials like the BOPP wrap is for soap, which we started to do here in this region and across the globe. I think a big challenges in the phasing of these things is always there's some technological challenges, but again, the economics, you need to. A lot of the times, our lines, and I can tell you from my experience, our lines cannot today run mono-material material. So we need to buy new lines, and we are buying new lines. And this is going to sound like a very basic problem, but machine manufacturers only manufacture machines at a certain speed. And if we're trying to do all of our soap manufacturing lines, of which we do thousands of tons a year of soap manufacture, if we try and do that all across the world at the same time, and maintain the same technological solution, it doesn't happen. A machine manufacturer only manufactures so many machines a year. And this is a basic answer to, sounds like big companies don't want to do it. We do. It's basic problems.
Yeah, Wasim, actually, there's no need for change in the entire machine. Maybe we can talk offline. All we need to do is to make very little changes in the machine, and it can work very well. And that's what we try doing it for Unilever in some countries.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Zini Mograbi would like to know, will there be any any new regulations from governments or companies on what type of packaging will be allowed to be sold? Pankaj?
Yeah, so, there's obviously a lot of debate and discussions going on around the world in terms of what could be allowed and what could not be allowed. I cannot really comment about what's going on across the globe. I am, trying to more closely follow Europe and India. And right now, they are also still saying that they are studying more. But as I said earlier, the focus is more when it comes to multi-layer packaging is more on polypropylene and polyethylene-based structures. If you go back to India, initially they said that everything has to be recyclable, but they found the challenges along with it, and therefore they said that anything which can go in the roads or the cement kilns would also be allowed, as a multi-layer packaging. So there are more solutions coming to it, but definitely it's clearly proven that the mono material structures will add much more value to the final waste or resource which comes out of the use, post-use of the product.
Michael would like to know, how is the advent of biodegradable plastic now, particularly when used for manufacturing bags? How is it viewed, especially as it impacts the ability of recycling companies to separate this type of product from non-biodegradable plastic? Now, specific challenges, difficulty to avoid contamination of recyclable grade plastic, and in a majority of cases, the cost implications for the diversion of this waste to commercial composting operations, which is also typically not favorable towards this product. Pankaj, would you like to take this? Pankaj, you're on mute.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of noise in the background.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise in the background, I said. Okay, it's better. Yeah, so, yeah. So, biodegradable, we have to be very specific. And as you rightly pointed out, that there are challenges if you put it back to the recycling stream. Actually, many of the developed nations are going away from this concept of biodegradability because one, it's expensive. Second is it consumes natural resources. And third is it creates problem during recyclability. So as of now, I would say that it's not a great idea and it's not picking it up. But maybe for some specific applications, it can find space, could be bags, which has to be recycled very, very separately. So I think if any country wants to shift towards biodegradable products, it has to be very specific in terms of what are these products and how are you going to either put it for simply disposing in the environment, or you will still try to do 1 or 2 times recycling, if at all that technology comes.
So what is the current duty of care for producers and packaging waste generators in the UAE? Any future business case for a packaging recycling scheme run by producers and generators? Waleed would like to know. Wasim, any comment?
As of today, to the best of my knowledge, both producers and waste generators have no duty of care here in the UAE. However, as I mentioned in my presentation, as part of Project Circle, we are working with the Ministry of Climate Change, with the governments of Abu Dhabi, Dubai, all the different Emirates, as to how we can create voluntary EPR schemes that will allow for us to invest in collection and recycling in the country.
Okay. So Pratyush would like to know, this is again related to the Middle East and Africa, there is a perception that even after being so close to EU plastics processing industry, sustainability concepts are not yet a hot topic in MEA industry. Is this true? If yes, why is it so?
I guess I could take that one, Walia. So I touched a little bit on it before, right? Sustainability, and I'm a sustainability person who came from the environmental side, a little deeper into the business side as I started working with plastics. And from that perspective, I feel that people think sustainability is a nice to have, right? They don't understand that it's a need, and that's the only way that we can ensure that we actually leave a world for the future generations. I touched on the trends around population, et cetera, in the beginning of my application, and these are actually really, really important because as the populations are growing, we need to remember that we live in a world with limited resources. Everything that we have and that we are currently relying on in this make, use, dispose model, which Wasim mentioned, are things that will not be there forever. They are things that are finite. And so sustainability is the way that we ensure that people, planet, and profit can coexist together. And how do we make that happen? And so in Africa, we are making it relatable by what I mentioned before. Because if you consider some cross sections of the population, are below the poverty line, they're thinking about their basic needs. So the way to make it relatable is to ensure that whatever that's happening in the sustainability space affects their socioeconomic standards. And that's how you can start to build it. And speaking to people, sustainability professionals in Europe, this is kind of how it always started. I mean, currently, it seems as if the driver for this is that everyone on that side or in the developed country context really cares about it because of the environment. But in the past, they used incentive systems to bring people on board, especially those who didn't, who weren't in the higher income brackets. And so this is a good mechanism to make it happen here in Africa. Yes, currently the uptake is very low for several reasons. I think someone had mentioned or had asked a question about why sustainability is more expensive. It's for the very basic fact that what we are currently doing is affordable for particular reasons, right? And changing to the system where it has to come back in the loop costs more. And so from that perspective, turning that around means that we need to appeal to that basic needs aspect, bring people on board, and then add on that environmental consideration as well.
So there is a question here for Pankaj. Sandeep Bhaskar would like to know, what are the opportunities in India for new businesses and existing businesses to become sustainable?
See, actually a lot, and Africa, I could hear that the numbers of recycling is very low. In India, the recycling numbers are already very high at 50+%. And India is able to recycle PET bottles in a big way. Multi-layer plastics also is picking up very fast. So there's a lot which is possible. And I think Africa has to somewhat similar structure. It has low labor cost, and therefore it can still collect plastic and don't have to use many machines, unlike developed countries. So I think one is, I see there are a lot of opportunities for Africa, maybe to take some examples and better practices from India and start upping their numbers. As far as opportunities are concerned, I think this is opening up a whole lot of opportunities. The whole recycling industry is starting up, the pyrolysis process is starting up. Some industries are able to reduce their cost, like cement industry is able to use plastic waste instead of coal. It can be used for roads, and roads can become stronger. There's more research going on, but it is normally found that if you put plastics into the road, it makes it better. So there's a lot of opportunity for collection, for making a lot of new machinery for recycling, I would say. I could already see some companies have started making machines for recycling. I think there are again opportunities to make structures which are recyclable when it comes to multi-layer. In, let's say, rigid plastics, already Wasim talked about using right black color to make sure that it can be put for recycling. So I think it is definitely opening up a lot of opportunities for the business. I think even Loop, let's say, is an example where they have created altogether a new business out of nothing. So personally, I feel, and I could actually see, it's not about feeling. I could see so many new companies coming up with newer ideas to recycle, to try and see how waste can be minimized and put to better use.
Okay, great. So Wasim, I believe designers are important players, particularly in dealing with the challenges of sustainable packaging, from making the packaging recyclable to including more recycled material in new packaging, to not only protect the product, also to reduce environmental impact. Now, as a designer yourself, what are the challenges you have been facing in coming up with more sustainable solutions?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. So obviously, the first one is always, making sure that we are creating products which are safe for our consumers. So ensuring that there's no interactions between our products and our packaging. And that's where a lot of the reasons why you need different types of plastics, which then end up with you being not recyclable. Ensuring that we, for example, I was having I was on a holiday, and the hotel I was at was giving shampoo in a glass bottle. I was like, oh, great, they're getting rid of plastic, we're having a good time. And then I dropped the bottle because my hands were slippery because I just applied the shampoo, and I dropped it. So yes, I can very easily change all our packaging to glass, but then I now have glass in the shower and I cut my foot. So making sure that our consumers are safe first. The second one is obviously the whole entire life cycle analysis. So what we choose has to be better than what we have today in the entirety of the process, not just in one aspect. And this is where a lot of the challenges come in towards bio-based materials or alternative materials like paper. Do we chop down a rainforest or do we use the plastic? These are the sort of questions that we are generally going through. And then the last one is around functionality, consumer appeal. If you have a bottle that you use to spray and clean your countertops, that's quite a functional way of delivering a product for cleaning your. As of today, we don't have very good solutions. There are a couple of solutions, but we don't have very good solutions for creating pumps that we can use on a large scale for cleaning. So how do we ensure that the functionality is there for the consumer, the protection is there for the consumer, and the business case in terms of the triple bottom line all makes sense?
So before we close, I'd like to ask our panelists for their concluding statements, a key takeaway for the attendees. If you could, in around 30 seconds to a minute, sum up some critical factors that would influence the packaging sector in the near term, and any lessons the packaging sector has to learn from this pandemic. Yes, Pankaj?
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking who has to start first. Okay, so see, very clearly, sustainability is going to gain importance. And we as an industry have to work together to make sure that there are enough solutions on the ground. Definitely, there's a good progress. There's a lot of talk about it. There are a lot of efforts being made, starting with brands and then by packaging companies and then by raw material suppliers to them. So I think it's moving in the right direction. It would certainly be supported by the government regulations because you may have some brands doing it and some other brands are not doing it. And therefore, at some point in time, it is critical that it is also supported with right regulations. But before the regulations come, it's very important for the government authorities to learn in terms of how to make this entire piece working, because there's a lot of talk about it, but nobody has precise answers. There are challenges, and there are challenges in some applications, and there are no challenges in some other applications. So somebody has to go through everything and see that for this will work, and for this will work. I think eventually the entire plastic has to be collected and segregated in 4 or 5 different ways. It can't be application based. I think it has to be collected, segregated in few ways, and so that there's a complete recycling. From an opportunity perspective, it does open a lot of opportunities because a lot of this plastic has definitely a value which is more than the cost of collection. And with EPR obligations, it can even sweeten up the entire thing. So I think we as an industry also have a role to play to educate others who are looking for newer opportunities. So there's a lot of infrastructure which comes up for the recycling in every country, every city. But clearly, we have to work now. I don't think so this issue can be deferred for too long. Otherwise, we'll see more and more plastics in oceans and on roads and everywhere else. And again, there cannot be anything which can replace plastics at this stage. It is the lightest material. It is the cheapest material. And therefore, we should not be looking at throwing away plastic or replacing plastic, unless our technology comes 5 years, 10 years down the line, which I'm not sure if anybody is working towards that. But as of now, this is the best material available, and efforts must be made to try and collect it, segregate it, and recycle it. I think that's clearly the future, and we as an industry have to work together. We are already working together. It's just that how we can increase this association more and more. And a lot of these platforms can actually help to educate a lot of people who are attending these seminars. It actually imparts knowledge to us also in terms of what are the practices around the world. So I think it's a very good effort. Congratulations to you, Swali, and to everybody else who's attending it, and to Edward and Wasim. I think they also had made some nice comments. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. Wasim, any comments? Closing remarks?
Yeah, I think the climate emergency is ongoing. We have to work together, and we have to find a circular way out of it. And as I said, from a personal standpoint and a Unilever standpoint, plastic is not the devil here. What we do with it and its place in the world is not in our oceans, rivers, streams, forests, and environment, but inside a closed loop. I think that's what my final statement will be.
Edward?
Thank you very much. So I think my previous speakers have covered it all. We all know that plastics is a beneficial material, but it's completely unacceptable that it ends up in the environment after its first use. And so from that perspective, we all need to work together along the value chain to make sure that we can keep bringing this material back into the loop. And when we are considering how to use the material and other alternatives, we have to think on a life cycle basis, right? It's easy to see the environmental issue and focus on that, but on a life cycle basis, and Pankaj and Wasim have both touched on this, plastic offers the best environmental benefit when compared to alternatives for certain applications. And so those are some of the considerations we need to make when we think about plastics. And I'm looking forward to a zero plastic waste future where plastic is a resource. Thank you.
We all hope for that. And thank you so much, all the panelists, Pankaj, Wasim, and Adwa, for joining us here today. Thanks for your time and for your participation and sharing valuable insights. And I also thank all those who have tuned in today for joining us here for this session. The recording will be available in a couple of days, and you all can access it on our website. Thank you, everyone. Thanks once again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.